Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about communication. So if that's interesting to you, then stay tuned. All right, so first things first, I am at home, so the sound may not be the quality that you're used to. If you're an audiophile, I'm really sorry about that, but hopefully you can hear me clearly enough. They are working on my house, so there may be a hammer from time to time. Hopefully not. But this is life, and I just wanted to get this done today because, well, let's face it, my hair is not going to look this good tomorrow, and I might not be wanting to wear makeup tomorrow, so today is it. But anyway, communication, I feel, is the thread in the fabric of our society, really. You cannot have a functioning society without communication. So I've been actually thinking about it quite a bit and been journaling about it and studying about it and learning all kinds of great things. I've learned that there are basically 4 styles of communication. They are intuitive, they are analytical, which is basically how I am, personal, and what's the last one? I have to look it up. Functional. All right, so basically 4 styles. I will put a link below to this particular article so that you can go and read it and learn what style you are, and hopefully it will help you communicate with those around you. But I kind of did something a little bit different this week. I went ahead and interviewed and talked with the people that are closest to me in my life, people that I talk to all the time. The first one was my husband, and we had a fun conversation. Well, for me it was fun. Conversation on the way to work one morning, and I clicked on the recorder. That was kind of hard, but it worked. Hopefully. Anyway, we had a conversation about our upcoming anniversary. So we're going to be celebrating 20 years of marriage, and that's this month. It wasn't always easy, but we made it work, and we're here now, and I'm very, very proud of what we've accomplished in our marriage. And communication is something that we had to learn, definitely had to learn. He definitely had a different style of communicating than I did, and I had to learn how to communicate with him, and he had to learn how to communicate with me. But I think overall, I think we've done a great job so far anyway. So here are some clips from that conversation. I know, but oh, it's so bright. So we had to, Mark, we had to be very natural. Just forget that the camera's here, all right?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the road driving.
Okay. So we're coming up on our 20th wedding anniversary in about a week and a half or so. I was curious what you think our secret is. Don't say my secret.
I would say communication.
How do you think we've changed over the years in our communication style?
I think we've mellowed out a bit.
Mellowed out? What do you mean? What was it like in the beginning?
Oh, it wasn't bad, but what I think I look at when I think of communication now is more just straight to the point and keep it simple. Sometimes we'd have difficulties communicating because we would, well, we each have our own style, so what would you
say your style of communication is?
Now, as far as communication styles, I don't know. What's yours?
You're not allowed to say I don't know.
I'm not one that really likes to dwell in the past, so my communication styles when we were first together, I did make a lot of assumptions when I would say something and just assume. But now, as I said before, I like to just keep it simple and and not take things like seriously. I mean, unless it's a serious conversation.
Well, one thing that I appreciate about your communication style is when things get pretty serious, you'll often try to diffuse it by making things into a joke. And I know sometimes that makes me mad, but later on when I look back and think about it, I am grateful for it because the joke kind of like kept things from being too heated.
Yeah, I try to de-escalate situations.
Yeah, you're pretty good at that. I don't know, for me, I think the secret to a long and happy marriage, ooh, it's a bumpy road,
Yeah.
but I think the secret to a long and happy marriage is unselfishness. And I think unselfishness is the secret to many things, actually. Like, they say that the love of money is the root of all evil, and I actually think that it's not. I think it's selfishness. That's the root of all evil. Because when you put self above everything else, you will do unspeakable things.
Yeah, I think we more or less like look out for each other and for our daughter and stuff like that. Their well-being.
Oh yeah.
Making sure people are feeling well and that kind of stuff. And that, I mean, that's just part of marriage.
How do you think communication affects our work?
Well, communication is vital for everything, work included. So you're talking about with us, it's important so that we're on the same page when we're letting our employees know something,
because we work. You and I work together. Yeah. And you and I are in many ways are opposite from each other. I will do something, and then you would, if you were to do the same task, 9 times out of 10, you'll do it the exact opposite way I would do it. That doesn't make you wrong, it just makes you opposite.
Yeah, or a different way.
So,
yeah,
it's
we have different approaches on things.
Definitely.
Which works, and it complements a lot of situations. So.
Yeah, but we were always on the same page raising Julia. And that was pretty easy, I think.
Well, when you talk about communicating with your daughter, or a child in general, when you're raising a child, I think that the parents have to be on the same page, because otherwise you'll end up undermining each other on everything. So,
like from the get-go, like before she was even born, we had already decided, pretty much how we were going to raise her. I think that helped.
Yeah, and if we have disagreements, we would talk about that ourselves.
Definitely.
So
we would do that away from her, like if you undermined
that united front.
Yeah, like if you contradicted me in front of her, I would take you aside and be like, Mark, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah. Holding a camera while in a moving car is really hard.
Yeah, I think it's important to learn other people's communication methods and styles, because pretty much everyone has their own different ways. By learning how they communicate, it makes us better communicators. Being able to adapt to how other people do things.
Well, I mean,
adjust.
Wouldn't you agree that communication is nearly half listening? I mean, you have to listen.
Oh, yeah.
In order for communication to happen. So
listen without thinking about what you're going to be saying next, or just listening to what the other person's saying.
Exactly. So the listener has just as much responsibility in the outcome of the communication as the speaker. So, you can't listen with the intent of replying. You have to listen with the intent of understanding. Otherwise, the communication is just a failure. And I'm guilty of not doing that. So.
I'm sure everyone is.
Yeah. But sometimes we'll be having a conversation and I will actually cut people off to say my point, and I always feel terrible about it, and then I'm always like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And,
oh yeah, that's when people are talking about something that they get excited about, they're like, oh.
I know, and I do it to Ruth all the time, and it drives me crazy. I'm like, and she's always so gracious about it, and I'm just like, why did I do that? That's so rude. But she's always just so nice about it. She doesn't get mad or anything, which is really nice. Maybe she should get mad, because then I might stop doing it. But she never gets mad. Well, Mark, that was a nice conversation.
Yeah. I guess you could say all these signs are communication too.
Well, of course.
Everything pointing the way to go.
I think we spend most of our life in communication mode. We are human after all.
I was a human. I mean, never mind.
And then was talking with Ruth, and what spurred this conversation and then made me quickly turn on the camera, even though it wasn't flattering light at all, but we'll just get past that. So she was on the phone with someone from one of our shipping vendors, and she was not really receiving very good customer service, and she was doing her best to communicate her needs, but the person on the other end simply was not listening to her, and they actually were quite rude to her. I'm not going to say their name, but and in fact we're going to bleep out their name so that you don't hear it, because I don't want to besmirch anyone. This is just an example of when you're not being heard, you know? So here's some clips from that.
Okay, and no... What was that last... What did you just say? Okay. I appreciate your help. Thank you. Bye-bye. So they don't know anything. They don't have any answers. I was just amazed at the customer service that they had today. Like, they immediately tell you everything they can't do and they're unwilling to do. Like, the one gal was saying, we can't contact Shopify for you. When I never even said anything about Shopify, I said, I'm doing this thing, and she goes, what platform do you use? And I said, oh, Shopify. She goes, I don't even know what that is. I can't contact them for you. And I was like, listen, please listen to my words. Somebody listen, you know?
So I feel like it ties in with what we were talking about communication-wise, and that is such a good example of not listening. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like you were doing a good job of communicating the problem, mm-hmm. but for some reason, she was just on autopilot and just not hearing anything you said.
Right.
And like you repeated yourself, I think 3 times, and I don't know if after the 3rd time she got it or what, but
yeah, I don't know, but it is so true, and it is also like a reminder for me personally, because I do try to listen, and to me, every word that someone chooses to include mm-hmm. is there for a reason. Like, if they care about communicating with you, then there's a nuance and there's a reason for every word, mm-hmm. and so you should listen to it.
And that's something that I'm working on, mm-hmm. is listening harder. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I listen okay, but I feel like I could do better. I don't know, that's just such a good example of someone not listening. Like, mm-hmm. they're so like cued in on their habitual work patterns that they're just not listening to anything you say.
Well, it's very important to me to communicate clearly at work. First of all, it's a lot more on the line than just, you know, oh, what do you want to eat for dinner? Mm-hmm. What do you want to eat for dinner? But like in personal, I think it's easier for me to not communicate as well, or be more quiet about things, or not be as clear. I tend to let kind of things sit. Because I'm a person that's always looking, I talked about the words and the nuances before. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking between the lines when people talk to me, and I assume they're doing that to me too. So in my personal life, I assume that they're just as, you know, overthinky as I am.
I promise you they're not.
But I know
yeah.
they're not. And so like sometimes it's funny because I'll tell Lucas something that happened, and I'll tell him my opinion on what I think happened, and he'll be like, your head is so like, no, that's not what they think. That's not what happened. It's harder for me to understand people who don't think about every little nuance and every little word.
And I don't.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't. I take it as face value.
Yeah.
And I don't read between the lines, because I have found just in life that reading between the lines destroys relationships.
Pain and suffering is Yoda would say.
Yeah, it does for me. I cannot read between the lines, because often what I'm reading is not what they're
fake.
saying.
It's like fabricated.
It is. I've had people in my life that will read between what I'm saying mm-hmm. and think they know what I'm thinking and feeling, mm-hmm. and they couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
But they're the type of people that no matter how much you explain it, mm-hmm. they will never listen, because they feel
think
like
they already know.
They feel like they know,
mm-hmm.
and it becomes their truth. Mm-hmm. And you can't explain it away to these particular people, and it's hurtful. It hurts. It destroys relationships. So I work really hard on taking things at face value, mm-hmm. And
I've been doing that a lot more.
Yeah, I had to train myself not to do it because I used to read between the lines.
Yep.
And I trained myself not to do it. And I'm like, nope, face value.
Yeah.
They didn't actually say that. So,
Yep.
you know, and if I think they said it, like I'll do it with Mark.
Yeah.
If I think he's trying to say something else because his body language says something else, I'll say, are you saying? And then that gives him the opportunity to clarify what I might be feeling like he's saying.
I need a lot of information. That's why I read between the lines. I need a lot of information to understand things. So that's why I'm always like clarifying and stuff. But I do think that the times that are hardest is when you're like emotionally or physically exhausted. Then those things that you're prone to come back again, and you're like, why am I feeling like this, or why am I noticing all this stuff, or why am I making up stories about everyone around me, like, oh, it's because I need some sleep, or like, you know, I've just been working hard or whatever.
And lastly, I interviewed my daughter Julia because she's 19, and I think at 19 you have a really fresh look at life, and I really liked hearing her perspective on communication. I felt like she had a lot to add to the conversation, so here's some clips from her. What would you consider your communication style?
I'm the kind of person that really values honesty. Normally, I wouldn't know how to answer that question. Sorry.
But this is our second take, right?
Yeah, this is the second take.
Yeah, so you're a little more prepared.
Yeah, I know what to expect out of this interview. I got this.
Okay. So what would be an example of your communication style?
I've learned to sandwich things, like a compliment and then the criticism and then the compliment. So that works for me. But when I was younger, I was really scared to give criticism or talk or anything. Nowadays, sometimes I'll forget the sandwich and just straight up tell someone what needs to happen. Like in my creative writing class, there was this one girl and she's like, this piece is really, really long. Tell me what I need to cut. And I just told her, you need to cut all the parts where your brother's not mentioned, because it was about her brother, because that doesn't contribute anything to the story. And the girl next to me would say, oh, but it was so well written. And then I would interrupt her politely and say, I'm not saying it's not well written, it just doesn't need to be there. Like, it's beautiful, it's just not necessary to what needs to happen. And I think that sums up my communication style. I try to be nice, I try to care about people's feelings, but if it needs to be heard, I'll just say it.
Okay. And in your opinion, how important is, who's responsible for the result of the communication? Is it the speaker or the listener or a little of both? And if it's a little of both, what percentage goes to whom?
The speaker takes up a small amount of it. The speaker still needs to be clear, but the listener also needs to make sure they're hearing clear. So if I had to assign a percentage to it, let's do fractions, because then it'll be more whole. So I would say 1/3 is for the speaker to speak clearly, and the other 2/3 is for the listener to be engaging and listening clearly.
So you've given a lot of weight to the listener. And so what can the listener do to be a better communicator as a listener?
So as a listener, ask questions. Make sure you're understanding things clearly. For example, if someone is asking someone to do something for them, I'm the kind of person who also super overthinks everything too. So if someone asks me to do something, I'll either just do it or stew or think about everything that could go wrong or go right with it. In that case, I just need to ask some clarifying questions and make sure I'm understanding correctly what needs to happen in order for this to run smoothly. If I'm the one giving those instructions or asking someone to do something for me, it could be something as simple as making tea. Who knows? But if I'm asking someone to do something, I would also want to be asking questions to make sure that they understood. like what it is that I'm asking, or ask them to repeat back to me what I said. So that way it's all clear that they understood what I was saying and I spoke clearly.
What do you do when communication goes wrong?
Okay, when communication goes wrong, for example, fighting, I have an ideal way of how I would like that to go. I would prefer if the person who has the problem says, I feel blank because XYZ, or I feel upset because blah blah blah, and nothing blaming, nothing anything, not saying you did this to me, I don't like you, why did you do this, I don't like that. I would rather hear I feel blank because blank, because I feel like that's a much more constructive way to go about conflicts than doing it the other way. And I would appreciate in a conflict if the person listening would repeat back and say, okay, you feel blank because this.
What if it isn't a conflict? What if it's simply a misunderstanding? Like you gave someone a job to do and they misunderstood the job and they did it incorrectly.
So you said if the job was done incorrectly. If the job was done incorrectly, I would want to have a meeting with those people and talk to them and ask them about what their communication style would be, or see what would help most in that kind of situation, or when I do give them a job to do the next time, I would ask clarifying questions to them to make sure that they understood, or ask them to repeat back to me. I think it just depends on the person. I overthink things. I don't like twist things around.
You tend to use a lot of words to explain simple thoughts.
Yeah.
What happens when you're doing that and somebody's like spaced out? What do you appreciate rather than that?
Yeah, I over-explain. So I would appreciate it if I'm over-explaining something and someone's just tuning me out, if they would tell me, hey, you're over-explaining, I need you to like shorten this so that way I'm not tuning you out, because I love you and I respect you and I want to make sure that I'm listening to you.
So can I just say, Julia, you need to sum it up because you're losing me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I would like very much to know, what kind of a communicator are you? Are you functional? Are you personal? Are you intuitive? Or are you analytical? How has that served you in your life? If you could leave a comment down below, I would love to hear from you what it is, that makes you tick. That's always interesting to me. I love figuring people out. So leave a comment below and let me know what kind of a communicator you are. And if you have any questions, as always, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. And if you would like to see my other channel, which I have been working on content for the other channel, there is a link right here, and you can go to the other channel, subscribe, click the bell, and as soon as we start uploading to that channel, you will be in the know. If you want to see other videos, it's right here. You can subscribe. You can go check out my website. Anyway, thanks guys so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.